Let's speak to someone who we're already going to be speaking to today as it happens, but it now seems much more poignant in a way. It's a former extremist, and we don't say that very often, a former extremist, Adam Deen. Good morning to you, Adam.
Good morning.
You were coming in anyway today to talk about your work in schools and how you are now here and abroad helping to tackle extremism or radicalisation of young people in this country. Just give me your reaction to what we've seen in France. And in a way, what you are doing, and we'll talk about that, is to prevent exactly this kind of thing.
My response, my reaction is one of despair, but it's not shock. I'm not surprised at what we're seeing now, because in fact we should be expecting more of these. We should be saying, you know, why aren't more of these heinous crimes, terrorist acts actually happening?
Why do you say that?
Because as a former extremist, I understand the mindset behind these acts. And
which is, talk us through it, because that's something that a lot of people would think, who could do that? Who could drive a lorry through a crowd, killing children, killing people out enjoying a celebration? It's very hard for us to know that mindset.
Yeah.
So perhaps you could share with us where it is.
The mindset behind these acts is one of immense intolerance and hatred. It's a process that happens over some time. And what's troubling about it is that it's a religious motivation. It's one that actually believes that they're actually serving God. So that's the challenging thing about this this type of mindset. And being a former extremist, when I see acts like this, unfortunately, I can actually understand why they would do it.
So was that in your head when you were in that zone, that you could have ploughed down women and children? How did you work that in your head?
The way that I would have seen these kind of acts would be, this is retribution. This is retaliation against the war on Islam and Muslims, and that anyone who engaging in this would actually be rewarded for such an act.
Are you Muslim now? I mean, you're still a Muslim?
Yes, I'm still Muslim now.
Where were you when you started to be radicalised? I mean, what was going on in your life? How did it happen? And do you recognise those kids now when you go into schools?
Yes, I was in my late teens, and I developed a curiosity of Islam. Wanted to find out more about my faith, and I think I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I met certain individuals who were Islamist extremists, and what they did was they just put me on a journey which I didn't really know where was ending, and over time I became sympathetic to their ideas, and then became an advocate and joined the organisation and spent almost a decade propagating their ideas.
And where were your parents at this point? Because obviously, you know, a lot of the rhetoric that we hear, well, not rhetoric, I mean, a lot of the argument is that, you know, Muslim parents don't do enough to, you know, stop their kids from having these ideas. Where is the Muslim community? Where are the, you know, where are the imams, the good imams? Why aren't they trying to tackle it?
Yeah.
I mean, where were all those people in your life, and why weren't they able to spot you and try and stop you from thinking those thoughts?
My answer to that would be, you know, how many parents actually know what their children are doing behind closed doors when they're out? My parents actually were unaware of my extremist activities. I think the only time they actually found out was when I was at a demonstration burning a flag and I was on TV.
And did you actually think of a terrorist attack? I mean, were you how far gone down that line had you gone? Or whether you'd had conversations, had you, with other extremists about what you would do?
Yes, at the height of my extremism, I did actually have meetings talking about potentially putting a bomb in London.
So we have the brand new Education Secretary, Justine Greening, coming in this morning. Admittedly, she's only day 2 into her job. But what would you say to her about how much attention should be paid to this in schools, how it should be resourced, because we know schools are very overstretched? What would you say to her was the critical thing to deal with this?
It's all about safeguarding our future generation. And what I say to people is that if it can happen to me, someone who came from a very normal background, who was not angry, I was apolitical, it can happen to anyone. And the whole idea behind this project is to understand that extremism is a process. And if we can find out what that process is, then we can safeguard our future generation.
Is your Extreme Dialogues scheme, as it were, it's working? I mean, I know you're going to say it's working, but do you genuinely feel you've stopped people in their tracks?
From my own experience, yes, and even training teachers, I think it's crucial. And
that's charity funded, though, isn't it? Isn't it funded by donations?
Currently, yes.
See, that is a concern, isn't it? That it's reliant on donations in order to happen.
And also what kind of comes into this discussion is the prevent strategy. And I think it's the strategy to be in place right now, but I think it's underfunded.
It's underfunded in schools, and it's meant to be happening in schools. OK, well, I mean, stay around, because obviously we'd like you to have a word with Justine Greening. I mean, it's, you know, you come from a very particularly unique point of view, and the point being as well, isn't it, that if parents are finding it difficult to know what their kids are thinking, how on earth do you expect teachers who are meant to be teaching to spot it in the classroom?
They've sort of got, you know, algebra to tackle first, haven't they?
Absolutely. Lots and lots of questions. Really interesting to talk to you. Thanks very much.